Hi, welcome back to Keep It Dirty, a podcast where my guests share their life living functionally and sustainably, and the why behind their experiences navigating through our ever changing environment. I am your host, Leslie Dowling. I'm a corporate speaker, sharing how one can jumpstart your path to increased revenue and productivity through restorative health techniques. And today it is my pleasure to introduce to you my guest, Elliot Kay. Elliot is the founder of Kay Enterprises. He is also a communications specialist and speaker for Experts Who Speak. Elliot helps established entrepreneurs become world-class speakers and is the Speaker Awards co-founder. Elliot is a six-time author, award-winning entrepreneur, and event host. So, Elliot, maybe I should give a little background to our listeners
Yeah.
as to how we made this connection. As we are across the seas, I am here in the US, you're in London. And it was through Clubhouse, a mutual friend of ours, Jason Thomas, who has a very successful podcast. And you were a guest speaker. And I love the fact that you just came across just so grounded, real, and just a true blue person. And that's what I resonate with in life. And I really appreciate all that you do. And now we are actually working together. And I am so excited to go on this journey with you for you to share your professional insights and services. So how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. I'm excited to be on this, and of course, I think most people like to keep it dirty, so I think we should we should keep it dirty. I mean,
I
can you
love it.
say that and keep a straight face? I'm not sure, but yeah, let's keep it dirty.
I love it. So I would love to hear about your why behind your passions and maybe a little bit about the foundation that how you have molded yourself and grew and evolved.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about this today, also knowing I was coming on this podcast, and I was just thinking how much my why's changed. I think there's a period in my life where my why was all about giving people the tools to deal with in a conflict and peace in the Middle East and all these kind of big missions, and how now my mission is simply is a lot more simple than that. My big why is to be a great father, great husband, and to impact entrepreneurs globally, right? So, and in that order. And I think maybe sometimes I need to shift the wife to the top and the kids to second. But that's a different conversation. So really my kind of overarching why is giving people the tools to use their voice for good, right? So if we're to strip it right down, it's all about using your voice for good to impact change, to influence change, to make sure that when you're standing on stage, virtual or non, when you're holding those board meetings, when you're innovating that product, that your voice is used for good. And that's my overarching why in that respect. And I think the turning point for me was way back in 2008. And this is when you go, but you look so young. Thanks, Leslie. Thank you. I appreciate that. um, but I was actually studying to be a coach. And what happened was, I'm from the era that coaching had to be accredited. It had to, I had to work with 15 people, had to accumulate hours.
Mhm.
And what happened was, just in one of the sessions I did, I was speaking to this lady. Her name's Jan. And she simply said that through working with me, she learned that she needed to be happy to lose weight and not lose weight to be happy. And for me, that was the moment that everything changed. I got goosebumps. I was in my attic room in London. I don't live in London now. I am from London. I
Oh,
live in, that's okay. I live in Devon by the coast, much
oh,
nicer than
lovely,
London.
lovely. Yeah.
That's okay. I'll forgive you. I'll forgive you. And that's really what started this directory into coaching, into mentoring, into my entrepreneurship, into really becoming what I am today. It was all down to those two sentences that Jan said to me. And that's the
Wow.
beginning of it. I mean, there's lots more to it.
Yeah. So, as a child, who was your inspiration? or who was it that was the catalyst for this drive and motivation to just be this solopreneur to really etch your way in what you're doing today?
It's a really interesting question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me it like that. Because
Oh.
the moment you said that, when I went back to actually, but when I was being a child, I don't feel I had a business role model, right? I grew up with a father who was an alcoholic.
Hmm.
He's now recovering, but technically always an
Yeah.
alcoholic. And I had a mum that was a workaholic. So if you look at kind of the influence on me, I had someone that was always getting fired because of an addiction, and I didn't know it was because of alcohol till I was 16.
Hmm.
And then I witnessed my mom work all the time, every day, all day, just being exhausted. So I think my drive to work hard and achieve comes from watching my mother. Um, but I don't. If I think back, I don't feel I had an inspiration until actually at the age of 16, I started performing arts. I got into because I flunked all my studying when I was dyslexic. I couldn't read. It was a period where it wasn't cool to be dyslexic and it wasn't accepted that you're dyslexic. You were just called lazy or right.
Yeah.
So I pretty much flunked all my, they call them GCSEs in the UK. But I managed to go on to a college course for performing arts. And I think that's where I started to find inspiration through performing, through, I remember being very much into Andrew Lloyd Webber and Cameron McIntosh and kind of them as producers and visionaries. And that's my beginning of things. But I think the real moment where I had inspiration from someone, and this will be a name that not a lot of people will even know and remember, is when I started to discover the life of Rudolf Nureyev, the dancer. And that comes late at university.
Yes.
Sorry, what did you want to say?
No, I think of Rudolf Nureyev and just this amazing, he was a ballet dancer.
Right, right. That's what he
Yes.
was. Yeah.
So yes, I know that name, and
Yeah.
yeah.
But I don't know how many millennials and zillennials, Generation Z would know that. But yeah, he became my inspiration because, he's got everything going in terms of what we want against the odds, a background of poverty. So he really had sort of all those elements that I found inspiring. He revolutionized the industry. He became a figure for me, almost narrowing, slightly obsessed with him. And I just found his aura, because obviously he was passed away by the time I discovered him. Just everything about him inspired me. And that's what inspired me to pursue dance at the late age of 21, when I was against it and all these things going against me. I pursued a dance career. So I suppose then if you look at who was my inspiration, who was my drive, who opened up the door for me to become what I am today, that'll be Rudolf Nureyev.
That's really amazing. I would have never connected that, nor I didn't know that you were into dance. So were you ballet, tap, or you did it all?
Well, I started really late, right? So I started when I was 21, again, inspired by Rudolf Nureyev, because he started really late for a male dancer. So I started at the age of 21. No, I trained contemporary here in the UK, and I did Martha Graham, something called Merce Cunningham. We did a bit of jazz hands and 12th harp and step book change. We did all that. But I also got into breaking and street, and and then when I finally graduated at the age of 25, I actually toured with folk companies. I did Irish dance, and then in the UK I did some contemporary dancing, and then I got injured. It's a typical kind of like story, but so at the age of 30, I had to decide on the direction. Where am I going next? Um, and that's really where I think the beginning of entrepreneurship for me really kicks in, is kind of the end of my dance life. That's where it starts.
Well, that was my next question was, why did you transfer and get out of dance? Like, I thought maybe you would be in doing something instrumental with dance at this point, but obviously you had an injury.
Yeah.
So,
And
which,
it's the typical, if I knew then what I know now, would I have stopped? But I didn't, and that's the reality. So, when I kind of had, so I had a disc hernia, which I still have technically, which is my discs ground against each other, right? And a lot of people have that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I had to stop. And actually, I stopped for a year, and I went to go back a year later. And again, first class in, last exercise, boom, my back goes. I'm like, I know this is over, right? Because I didn't have the tools I have now then. So then I go into this very dark period of being lost, which is a lot of people talk about when they lose purpose, when they get so close to their dream, right? And it's taken away. I go through that period. And I was at a really established place. I was at that phase that a lot of people, performers dream of, where you get phone calls and they're like, come and work for me versus come on audition. I was at that stage and I had to turn work down. I had the Opera House in London calling me going, Elliot, I've got a part for you. Do you want it? I had choreographers calling me going, I've seen you perform. I want to work with you. I'm like, I can't, I've got a back injury. So all these opportunities, and the industry doesn't wait for anybody. It just moves on. Right. So that's when I go into this very dark, regressive period of my life where I just day to day exist. Right. I'm just getting up. I'm doing a job. I'm working and I'm just existing. It's like there's a hollowness to me. I mean, I didn't like turn, I drink more, but I'm not becoming an addict, right? I'm not going
Right.
stuck. I'm just, I'm
Yeah.
working and then I'm going out and I'm drinking. And it's just like, what is my life about?
Mm-hmm.
And then I find myself a job as a trainer. And then as a trainer is kind of the transition where I'm like, wait a minute, I need to be a better trainer. So I studied coaching. And then when I studied coaching, I have that epiphany with Jan, who changes everything. And then like, wait a minute, I need to pursue this path. I need to become an entrepreneur, right? I didn't declare that, but I'm like, I need to build this business. So then I
Right.
built the coaching business for 5 years. Now we're around 2010. I leave everything behind and I deep dive into building businesses. And of course, the moment I did that, everything happened. I became a millionaire, I retired. I've got 6 cars. No, of course not. Of course I know, right? Controversial. But yes, so that's when I really shifted into the space kind of that leads me to where I am today.
So do you think I mean, years ago, I remember when people didn't even have websites, nothing was Googled. I mean, everything you had to figure it out on your own. Through all the social media and now the digital tech industry, I mean, did that serve as a real advantage for you for your business, just reaching out to people? And
I think the challenge I have and I've observed of myself is I'm a late adopter. So when I was launching my coaching, that's when Facebook was really gathering pace. That's when websites were becoming something. Google was, so all these things that now are integrated into our lives was just starting. And of course, me being an late adopter, I'm watching it. I'm watching it. Is it going to work? Is it going to work? I'm not sure. And by the time like, right, I'm in, I've kind of missed that kind of like
mm,
way.
yeah,
Um, so for yes, it did help me in the sense that I could build a presence a lot quicker than I ever could have done had I just relied on a website. And I think, I'm from the era where I saw it start and I've seen it grow. Same, where with websites, I've seen all the birth of the other, Instagram and all those ones that we've all been around to see.
I love it. And for me, it's so exciting because in my 20s, we didn't have this technology. Um, Everything now, like I said to my kids when they were applying to college, my older son's like, well, don't you have to write and then mail? They're like, Mom, everything's online now. Like you don't, even applying for jobs online. And I think, there are the good and evil because a lot of people are losing that looking somebody in the eye, shaking someone's hand and having that human connection, which I think is really so important. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think obviously the pandemic didn't help that, right? It robbed us all of that for a while. I think it's one step further. I think the issue is it's not just about looking someone in the eye and shaking their hand. It's understanding the value of a handshake and honoring that, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people shake hands or commit to things. And I think because it's so easy now not to show up and not honor things and not
Right.
respect things, because we're very much removed. I could not show up to Zoom meeting. I don't have to let you know. I just won't show up and I'll never hear from you again. And I know that's that consequence. And I
Mm.
think that's the level of, I feel that's being shredded away, that level of humanity, of honor. I don't mean honor as in kung
Yeah.
fu style. I mean honor, like I gave you my word, I'm going to stick to it, right? Because
Yeah.
now if you don't show up, they'll just block you, or they'll just expose you, whatever it is. And I think that's really the part that I think is fading away. So that feeling of walking in, and you talk about applying for colleges or jobs, walking into a room, shaking someone's hand, you know selling yourself in a way that you're not hidden behind a screen. It's a very different feeling when you walk in and you smell a room, and you look that person in the eye, and you've got to go through the process of traveling to an interview, delivering it, and traveling back. Now it's like, oh, I've got a job, I've got an interview in 5 minutes, switch off PlayStation, put my phone down, boom, I'm on. And
Yeah.
I think that is that I think that's a real shame that people don't go through that perturbating experience,
Yeah.
right?
That's important. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I think more companies should emphasize the need to show up,
Hmm.
be there. But I'm not companies. So I think we need to bring that element of humanity back, honoring your word. And I know it's a matter of values, right? Like values are important. But still, shaking a hand, it means something when you commit to someone else.
Sure. And I think
Yeah,
it's pretty cool that like years ago there was nothing called hybrid, but it's the best of both worlds because technically, when you're in an office, you get so many distractions. Somebody's coming in, you talk, you schmooze, you go get a cup of coffee, whatever. But when you're focused and you're home, you could really just crunch things out and get things done. And it's like just check off that list. And yet I think it's so important to be able to get dressed, to go through that whole, you know, uh, ceremony or that tradition of getting dressed in the morning, going to work, and being with community, which is really important, and having that camaraderie and just physically be in that present moment. So I think hybrid is amazing. And I love and embrace the this virtual world because if it wasn't for this virtual world, we would have never connected.
correct.
Um,
Yeah, it's true.
right, and also having um, similar, people that we know through
Mm,
Clubhouse and different platforms on LinkedIn. As you were a guest on Jason Thomas's LinkedIn, his show.
yeah.
That is the beauty of technology and AI. And I am so tired of people saying, "Oh my gosh, like, oh, we can't, it's scary or it's going to take over the world." This is what our future is, but you could still embrace it. Like I use it to help me with some transcripts, but then
Right.
for my podcast, but then I interject my little secret sauce of really who Leslie is. But it
Mm,
is a beautiful thing to have.
yeah.
So,
Well,
I
100
don't
million
know.
users can't be wrong, right? I mean, it was valued recently at $80 billion or something. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And absolutely, I think, AI is it's already taking over,
Oh, yeah.
right? And what I really love, just as a side note, is the founder of ChatGPT doesn't want another Facebook, that they're willing to be ethical and responsible. And I think that says a lot about him and
Hmm.
what they want to achieve. It's quite interesting. And, actually, when you talk about the kind of hybrid, and yes, we never would have met. So, but still, like when you and I commit to something, we're honoring that commitment, right? And that's what I think a lot of, I spent time out in LA, and there was a time I tried to launch a business out there. And a part of me was really shocked at how flaky and how people would say they'd show up and to meetings and they just wouldn't. And there's not an apology, there's not a sorry. By the way, I'm not having to go out the whole of LA here, but I just noticed this culture. And there's this
Right.
culture in a lot of places because we can just not, there's no consequence, right?
Hmm.
Well, I used to have to see that person and apologize or let them know, and now there's no consequence. And I think it's a real shame we're losing that on
Yeah.
a grander scale. But yeah, hybrid's amazing, and they talk a lot. Um, Part of the kind of to help mental health and stuff is a lot of people miss the water cooler chats. So a lot of companies now making sure there's water cooler chats going on and providing the space.
Mhm. Right. A cigarette break. Yeah. How dare they? Right. Yeah. So I have a very important question. Inquiring minds want to know, for all our viewers and listeners, do you have any kind of secret hobbies or something that you are passionate about that many people don't know about Elliot Kay? Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Stamp collecting, uh, yeah, knitting, knitting, knitting. Oh, oh my gosh. Yes, you are. You are so yes. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I'm jealous because I grew up by the sea and then moved 3 hours away. And it's so cathartic and so really just amazing. Just smelling the salt water, listening the crashing of the waves and all of that. And it just kind of takes me back. Yes, I love hearing that. So we would love to know. So where do you see yourself in? I know people say, "Oh, in 5 years," but where do you want to take your business? What? How do you want to service others? Do you see yourself just taking another direction, maybe down the road as you grow and evolve?
Thinking behind K Enterprises, hence the name K Enterprises, that it's got the K stamp on it and it becomes something significant. And you can't see the wall here, but it's kind of got all the different companies that sit in K Enterprises.
Wow.
And so there's still a way to go. There's 3 or 4 companies that I need to acquire. And something that I've learned to do is let go of pushing the acquisition, because the last 2 companies I've acquired, actually, one came to me, the other one was closing down. I said, give it to me. I'm like, okay. So I've kind of learned to see the opportunity a bit more versus beginning of
Mhm.
last year, really push for it. I was trying to raise investment and like, give me 500,000 and I'll buy these companies. Who's going to give you 500,000 to sit in the bank and when you're ready is going to buy a company? I mean, the concept, people like the concept, but when I
Yeah.
said I need this amount of money to be ready to buy a company, they're like, no, no, no. So that was the period. I was like, oh. So then I stepped back from it and things evolved naturally. So to answer your question, I see myself building this up to a point where it's self-sufficient and I can hand it over. And if the kids don't want it, it's fine. I'm not going to force them into, if my kids want to be more academic and spend their time in academia, cool. If they want to be sports, then cool. I don't know. Like, I'll let them find who they want to be in this world, as long as they're good people, right? That's kind of what my biggest aim is. And then from then on, I have a beautiful wife. She's 12 years
Mhm.
younger, so I want to spend quality time with her. We all know that, life doesn't take any prisoners, and I want to know that when the day comes, that it meant something, me being on this earth. And that's the most important part. So, all being well, in 5 years, we will be all up and running, and of significant contribution to the human race in whatever form that looks like. And you and me will do another podcast, probably be very
Yes.
different, saying, remember that 5 years ago we talked about this, right?
I remember this day. Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
And hopefully I'll be on the coattails and saying, I'm here, I'm going to do my talk and my speaking and thank you. So it'll be an interesting journey. And I love what you say about your children, that you're going to nurture and let them find out who they are,
Yeah.
which is so key and critical. And wow, lucky kids as they grow to possibly be able to take over, and you have furnished them with an incredible opportunity. So, and I know now it is 8:30 or so UK time, so I am going to ask you, how can people reach out? How can they connect with you? And are you running anything, special programs that we should know about?
Um, so I think the best way to reach out to me is LinkedIn. It's Elliot Kay, ELLIOT KAY. You can reach out to me via the website, Elliot at elliotkay.com. That's my speaker website. I have other websites. That's the easiest. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, look, I've got something called Inspired Speaker VIP program, which is my group program. I do 1-to-1. We've got the Speaker Awards coming up in July in the UK, the 5th of July. Super excited about it. It's the biggest it's ever been. We've got some incredible ambassadors and judges and sponsors. It is really exciting. I'm so excited about this. Is year 3, by the way. We've had 2 great years,
Wow.
also very challenging. Another podcast, another time. So yeah, look, I think best thing is reach out, let me know what you need or want, and I can guide you from there. And if it's not me, I probably know someone. I'm more than happy to connect people if I'm not the right person. So that's it. Yeah, I think LinkedIn's the best. Also, if you want to get a feel for me, what I post, what I read, what LinkedIn. I'm only on LinkedIn. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on Instagram. Although the speaker awards are on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. That's it. I've doubled down. That's my only space. Reach out.
Okay.
Elliot Kay, ELLIOTKAY. All right.
Love it. I love it. And it was such a pleasure having you. I
Thank
love
you.
your energy. And it was really interesting uh, to hear all about what you do and how you have served so many people and inspired so many people. So with that, sending love to everyone, and remember, keep it dirty and get out there, ground with Mother Earth. And when you have an opportunity, please reach out. And I think Elliot is coming back on one more time as I close, but hopefully he'll be able to pop on again. If not, Thank you for all the listeners and viewers, and show some love and support. If you could rate, review, and show some digital love in that respect to follow, that would be awesome. Take care and have a great rest of your day.